World War II saw the introduction of the Republic XP-72, a.k.a. the Ultrabolt, capable of being one of the fastest piston-driven engines compared to any plane during World War II. Well acquainted with the capabilities of the P-47 Thunderbolt, it was in fact meant to outfly and outperform this brilliant aircraft. Surprisingly, it never saw mass production. With its incredible speed and designed to make countless flights, making modern pilots still wonder, what if the XP-72 was used in the battlefield? And why it was not mass-produced? Who pulled the reins on launching what could have been the fastest piston-driven fighter of World War II? This is the story of a plane that could have become an extraordinary landmark in aircraft history. The P-47 Thunderbolt, known as the Jug, was one of the toughest and most effective fighter planes of World War II. It won immense praise from pilots for its strength, its massive capacity to carry armament, and its capability to operate under different missions without any sign of a hiccup. But the Republic aviation engineers set themselves to produce a plane that could even go faster and hit harder. They came up with the XP-72, otherwise referred to as the Ultrabolt. With a monstrous engine displacing 3,500 horsepower, it was the fastest piston-engine aircraft built. Many others believe that the P-51 Mustang and the Focke-Wulf FW-190D contended for the title of fastest aerial combatant. But it was the XP-72 that had the power to conquer them. While the success of the P-47 was unquestionable, and it had been touted for its contribution to the victories of the war, there was enough room for improvement. As part of this movable development, Republic Aviation, the line builder of the P-47, had begun the development of a more powerful and advanced fighter to be named the XP-72, expected to be faster and more potent, perhaps even more lethal than its earlier versions, if it went smoothly. It might have replaced the P-47 altogether. The XP-72 became a formal program in June 1943, when the U.S. Army Air Forces placed an order for 2 prototype aircraft. The most important improvement by far was the engine. In the place of the Pratt & Whitney R-2800 used in the P-47, the XP-72 was powered by a new and much more potent Pratt & Whitney. This time, it was the R-4360. This engine was bigger in terms of displacement and power. Now that was something that would definitely necessitate a redesign in the future with regard to the airframe. As a result of this, one major difference would be the air intake. Under the fuselage aimed at providing cooling to some of the basic components, another interesting innovation was the exhaust system in the XP-72. Here, the engine cowling was fitted on either side with flaps that could either be adjusted automatically or manually. These would vent engine exhaust, but they could also add a slight extra thrust for enhanced performance. However, upgunning the XP-72 also resulted in differences. This version, with its 650 caliber machine guns, 2 fewer than the P-47, differed from some other arrangements which gave us a much heavier caliber in the cannon. Of these, 2 machine guns were changed to 37mm cannons. In one more arrangement, 4 cannons had more stopping power with the aim that larger caliber weapons might be more effective than numerous smaller caliber weapons. Machine guns had higher firing rates, while the cannons had much more punch per shot. As a result of these changes, the XP-72 remained nearly the same weight as that of the P-47. It weighed roughly 14,400 pounds gross, and about 17,500 pounds for maximum takeoff weight. The real test would come in flight. The XP-72 flew for the first time on February 2, 1944. Though still short of fully operational supercharger performance, the flight was exemplary. It already was achieving speeds of 480 to 490 miles per hour, much better than that of the P-47, and climbing at 5,280 feet per minute, almost double the rate of the Thunderbolt. Because of its command and responsiveness, it was one of the finest performers among propeller-driven fighters. After this experience, the second prototype of the XP-72 was built, this one featuring a 6-blade contra-rotating propeller, which enhanced controllability and lessened any threat of the blades hitting the ground on takeoff or landing. When operating at full supercharger capacity, the XP-72 was judged by military sources to be capable of reaching speeds of over 540 miles per hour. Everything seemed ready for the XP-72 to enter mass production. By late 1944, the military had offered an order for 100 aircraft to be officially designated as the P-72. This order, however, was short-lived, one that was soon to be canceled. In spite of superior performance, the XP-72 never reached full production. While this was technically the primary reason for halting production, the fact of establishing the aircraft's great potential came too late to be of use. The war had practically come to an end by 1945. and new aircraft were no longer desired by the Allies. What was more important was that the jet technology was simply building up speed, and it had become clear that the jet aircraft were to take over aerial combat. Propeller-driven fighters were all but history. While the XB-72 was one of the fastest piston-engine aircraft ever built, it was unable to compete with jet fighters. Given the conclusion of world hostilities and the obvious priority to jets, there was hardly any point in completing the development of the XB-72. Additionally, the project was finally fast-shelved with only 2 prototypes constructed in total. By mid-1944, the United States military had placed great interest in the capabilities of the XB-72. An order was placed for 100 production models, and these aircraft were to be powered by the upgraded 3,500 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R-4360-19 engine. However, before testing finally ended, the war changed. Germany's air force had been seriously weakened, and so too was the demand for high-speed interceptors. To make matters worse, jet-powered fighters like the P-80 Shooting Star and Me-262 were already making great steps into the frontier of air combat. Thus, the production of the XB-72 was ultimately aborted in a turn of decisions that favored the development of new jet fighters. One prototype was to continue test flights until the closure of the project, while the other one met a tragic end in 1945. Due to a fuel line failure, the airplane caught fire. Engulfed by smoke, the oils flowed into the cockpit. The pilot sought to land the plane safely when another airplane, a Corsair, faced with some wretched fiasco, crossed its path at the final moment. This forced the XB-72 into a rough landing and caused serious damage. Because of the fact that the XB-72 was already out of commission, it was not repaired. The other prototype was also scrapped at some point, and no more surviving examples of the XB-72 are around today. There was even a last-ditch attempt to modify the P-47 into a jet conversion known as the Ultrabolt, although the P-47's airframe was not a suitable candidate for jet engines. So this idea was shelved early on. Speed is more than just engine power in the eyes of the pilot. It is a combination of aerodynamics, weight, thrust, and control. The XB-72 set the standard in all of these domains. At the heart of the XB-72 was the Pratt & Whitney R-4360 Wasp Major, a 28-cylinder, 4-row, air-cooled radial engine, which produced 3,000 horsepower, or 2,240 kilowatts, at takeoff. This made it one of the most powerful piston aircraft engines built during the war. The R-4360 underwent turbocharger modifications for further power, which could reach over 4,300 horsepower, meaning that the XB-72 had even more potential for speed gains should it ever undergo further development. Based on the stout P-47 Thunderbolt, the fuselage of the XB-72 underwent key modifications to refine its aerodynamics. Such refinements included a revamped hood and a streamlined intake system, both serving to maintain a more efficient airflow around the aircraft. Furthermore, afterburners installed beneath each wing provided stability during high-speed dives, thereby allowing the pilots to push the XB-72 to veer into the wondrous sky. This innovative turbocharger was developed far more thoroughly than many of its contemporaries, since it entered with the cockpit and went to compress the incoming air before going into the engine. Thus, at higher altitudes, efficiency was enhanced for the XB-72, where it derived speed and a climb advantage compared to others of its era. Even at this early election, prior to the mounting of its counter-rotating propeller, the XB-72 reached 490 miles an hour, or 789 kilometers an hour in tests. Just for comparison, the Supermarine Spitfire had a maximum speed of 485 miles per hour, or 777 kilometers per hour. The fastest Mustang series P-51H reached 487 miles per hour, or 784 kilometers an hour. The Dornier Do-335, another German push-and-pull aircraft, reached 474 miles, or 763 kilometers an hour. With the counter-rotating propeller mounted, the XB-72 may have gone even faster than 500 miles an hour, and was probably the fastest piston-prop aircraft built. The XB-72 was not only made to be fast, it was also capable of being a high-altitude plane, capable of reaching and engaging enemy bombers and fighters at altitudes. It had enough power in its vast engine, giving it better climb than most of its contemporaries. This allowed it enough time to intercept threats before their intended targets were bombed. As a pilot, speed is not just about the raw figures. It involves the handling of the aircraft, the climbing properties, and the response to high-stress situations. The XB-72, while an evolution of the P-47, would have felt totally different in the cockpit. And the power of that counter-rotating propeller to the improved aerodynamics, and all but one would call the XB-72 a hot performer. a true speedster through the skies. If the war had lasted longer, or jets had not advanced so quickly, the XP-72 could have changed air combat. Imagine dozens of XP-72s moving fast towards enemies before they even noticed. With an amazing speed, strong weapons, and a sleek design, it could have been a true legend. The XP-72 is one of the major what-if aircrafts of World War II. With the most powerful piston engine of its time, some of the finest, newer propeller technologies, and some of the most attractive aerodynamics in the history of warplanes, it could have been the fastest piston engine aircraft of the war. But it was too late, as jets were just beginning to dominate the skies. Regardless, the XP-72 remains an underrated marvel of plane engineering, and a tantalizing glimpse of what was possible with piston engine aircraft at their peak. This further speaks to the limitation of aviation progress. Sometimes we see highly capable aircraft left behind, not by inferior performance, but simply by technology outpacing it. And that's the story of the Republic XP-72 and its legendary ancestor, the P-47 Thunderbolt. If you liked what you heard about aircraft history, please let us know by giving us a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell for more incredible stories from above.